All of those groups have said they'll stop if Israel stops its genocide in Gaza. NBC News reported that Israel killed Nasrallah because he said, I'm only going to do a deal with you if you do a ceasefire in Gaza. I want to link a ceasefire in Lebanon with a ceasefire in Gaza. And the Israelis told NBC News, that's why we killed him. So we know that these groups have agency. Israel.
I mean, like, if they say the only way we're going to stop attacking you is if you stop defending yourself, then, like, yeah, that you kind of have justification for killing them.
No food has been allowed in by your government and your...
Like this part is just, I showed you videos early on stream of food trucks entering the Erez crossing in northern Gaza.
I'm not sure how Jonathan still comes on these shows and defends that kind of barbarism and open war crimes. I'm not sure how Jonathan sleeps at night watching people burn to death.
Open war, nothing he said there is what's annoying. Is like he'll intuition pump so hard about like something that like very clearly could be bad, but like nothing he said there at all substantiated that was a war crime. That action could be 100% perfectly like lawful. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to help with the algorithm, and consider sending a donation through YouTube Super Thanks to directly support the channel, and I'll make sure to reply. You should be ashamed. I saw Mehdi Hasan post this article saying Israel should be expelled from the UN, so I'm expecting some of those same points to come up. All right, we'll see.
Israel to urgently boost aid to Gaza or face having some military assistance cut off. It comes after reports that Benjamin Netanyahu was considering a surrender or starve plan to choke off aid to the north, leaving hundreds of thousands without food or water to flush out Hamas.
I haven't heard about that one, but that that report, you know, that I think like Blinken sent out saying, oh, you got to increase aid or else we're, you know, you're gonna face consequences under U.S. law. We can't give aid to people who are fucking violating international law. I'm pretty sure it's just like wrong that like for example I think it said that like September was like the least amount of aid given to Gaza in the past year or whatever. Like that month was like February because of all the shit going on in Rafah at that time. Like I actually forget when military operation began in Rafah, but like part of it also was like Egypt began construction in the Rafah in Rafah at that time. I just don't think I just don't even think that's true.
Terrorists. Israeli officials have told.
Although what did he say? He said
cut off. It comes after reports that Benjamin Netanyahu was considering a surrender or starve plan to choke off aid to the north, leaving hundreds of thousands without food or water to flush out Hamas terrorists. Israeli officials have told their US counterparts they won't enact that plan. But frankly, that's what they tend to say about most of their escalations just before they happen. In the past few days, 4 Israeli soldiers were killed, 58 more badly injured in a Hezbollah drone attack. The UN, meanwhile, has condemned a large number of civilian deaths caused by Israeli strikes, including one that hit a Gazan school. With the conflict now at its most dangerous juncture, I'm joined by 2 of the most accomplished advocates for their relative positions. Jonathan Conricus is a retired lieutenant colonel and international spokesman for the Israeli Defense Forces, and Mehdi Hasan is editor and CEO of Zateo.
Did Netanyahu actually say this, or like where do we get this like quote from? Or
welcome to both of you. Should be a fascinating debate. I hope, unlike some of my debates on this, it doesn't descend into talking over each other and ad hominem too much, because I think you're both better than that. And
also, like aid has been going into northern Gaza. Is it Kogat Northern, or let's look up Erez crossing. Here's like a tweet I saw. I know there's aid going. Maybe it's not enough, but I'm pretty sure there's aid going into northern Gaza. Like literally, like look, pure fencing humanitarian updates. 145 humanitarian aid trucks entered Gaza 3. This is Kiryat Shalom and Erez crossing. What the fuck? What the fuck is that? Chat. Okay, cool. From Nonfon, it says Nonfon 420 at Nonfon 420 test. Don't know what the fuck that is, but okay.
I interviewed you both multiple times. But Mehdi, let me start with you about where you feel we are now. It seems to me that where we are is that Benjamin Netanyahu, having been very unpopular with Israeli people, following the attacks on Hezbollah, the pager attacks, and then following up with the strikes on Hezbollah leadership and so on, he's suddenly seen a massive spurt in his popularity, and that seems to have emboldened him now to potentially go for broke with Hamas, with
there was
with
a
and ultimately potentially with Iran directly. Is that your reading of this, and how dangerous is that as a moment for the world?
Thanks, Piers. We're in a very dangerous moment for the world. Anyone who thinks otherwise is crazy. I've spoken to Middle East experts who say they've covered the region for decades and they've never seen it boiling like it is now. We could be on the verge of a much wider regional war than Israel has already created. And yes, Benjamin Netanyahu, anyone who follows Netanyahu's career, I think is well aware of the fact that he is a self-serving cynic. He, like Donald Trump, cares about himself more than he cares about his party or his people or his country. And we all know that he's carried on this war, partly, not only, but partly because he wants to stay out of prison himself. He wants to keep his far-right fascistic coalition together. And of course, escalating as we get closer to an American election helps him, because as even Joe Biden apparently has acknowledged in private, he's trying to get Donald Trump elected. So for Netanyahu, there's a wide variety of domestic political reasons that help him extend the war. As you say, people tend to rally around in times of war. When Iranian rockets or Hezbollah rockets are dropping on Israelis, of course, are going to rally around their government.
He's like a further 50 trucks.
Of course it helps Netanyahu. He's the ultimate cynic.
Jonathan Conricus, I mean, a lot of people think that. And it's hard not to deduce that that is what's driving it, not least because at the end of all this, Benjamin Netanyahu will face a moment of reckoning with the Israeli people for what happened on October the 7th, which many still blame him for in terms of a massive security failure on his watch. But also he's facing corruption charges, which have all been delayed pending resolution of the military conflicts. There's not really much incentive for him to bring any of this to an end, is there?
Yeah, never was a spokesperson for Netanyahu, and I certainly don't intend to be. And I think it's a bit flat to analyze everything happening in the Middle East only from Netanyahu's perspective and then dress everything up as if it is all related in some, mystical way, like the Elders of Zion type of thinking. I would offer, a different military way of looking at it. And when I see what Israel is doing, there's a lot of sense. For the first time in 11 months, or in a year after 11 months, Israel actually started gaining success against Hezbollah, and success leads to success. And when you succeed on the battlefield, you want to make sure
Elders of Zion, I've not heard that before.
That's what's happening now. I don't think that even Mehdi and other people can blame Israel for being attacked by Iran, or actually maybe Mehdi can, but I don't think that any reasonable person can say, well, Israel is at fault for Iran twice firing missiles on...
well, don't you know?
So what Israel
don't you know? Watch it. I guarantee he's going to say, don't you think Iran has a right to self-defense after Israel bombed their embassy, which is protected under international law in Syrian territory, after Israel violated IHL. Watch.
Is defending itself against Iranian attacks. First and foremost, Hamas, and Hamas is down but not out, and now dealing very lately, but and after a long period of time of 70,000 Israelis being evacuated from their homes for 11 months, but dealing with Hezbollah as well. And I think that in the coming days, or maybe a little bit more than that, Israel will expand its defenses to the real destabilizing factor in the Middle East, which is Iran. And to put everything within the Netanyahu context, I think it's a bit...
I'm going to defend the president from a helicopter.
True. And it really takes away...
Thank you, God88, for the follow. Welcome to the stream. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Attacking Israel. The Gaza and the Hezbollah and the Houthis and the Iranians and Iraqis and Syrians, all of these, they have no agency, they have no responsibility, they all are part of the Netanyahu show. I find that a bit hard to believe, and I think it's kind of a lazy argument to be making.
All right, Mehdi, your response to that?
Well, let's just deal with the agency issue first. A few things. One is, a lot of those groups you mentioned have all said that their fighting with Israel is tied to what's happening in Gaza. Many of them have offered the Houthis, Iran, and I said this to you, Piers, last time I came on the show, and you said, how can we trust them? I said, don't trust them, but call their bluff. They've all
just
said,
surrender in Gaza.
You end the violence in Gaza, you get a ceasefire, and we will stop fighting with Israel.
Which genocide? The one that Hamas started on the 7th?
Let me.
The genocide that Hamas started on the 7th?
Oh, damn.
The genocide that your country's being investigated. Can I finish a sentence? The genocide that your country's being investigated for the International Court of Justice right now.
Jonathan, let Mehdi finish his point. Jonathan, I'll let you respond after Mehdi finishes his point.
Yeah.
Mehdi.
I barely started, but he doesn't want people to hear what's going on. All of those groups have said they'll stop if Israel stops its genocide in Gaza. NBC News reported that Israel killed Nasrallah because he said, I'm only going to do a deal with you if you do a ceasefire in Gaza. I want to link a ceasefire in Lebanon with a ceasefire in Gaza. And the Israelis told NBC News that's why we killed him. So we know that these groups have agency. Israel.
I mean, like, if someone is attacking you and they say, the only way I'm going to stop attacking you is if you stop. I mean, obviously, there is something as a genocide in Gaza. But, like, if they say the only way we're going to stop attacking you is if you stop defending yourself, then, like, yeah, that you kind of have justification for killing them because they're literally saying we're not going to stop attacking you until you, like, give up, like, fighting Hamas in Gaza. Like,
agency. Jonathan Conricus wants your viewers to believe that Israel just blindly...
Every Piers Morgan episode, it's the same true.
Israel attacked Iran first in Syria. They bombed an Iranian consulate.
I told you he was going to...
...of international law.
There we go. True. I don't, like... it's a dumb point because, the embassies are granted some protection under IHL. I don't know the specific rules for, like, if they're being used for a meeting between people who are, like, clearly planning attacks against Israel. I don't know if that makes them a lawful military target. I haven't gotten to that part in my IHL textbook yet. It's just, like, such a dumb point because, like, obviously that bombing was in self. Like, are you kidding me? It's so obvious that bombing was in self-defense. Like, you talked about this bombing as if it was completely unprovoked. Like, obviously, you don't let Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps members meet with people in fucking Syria to plan attacks against you. Like, Where you stand in Israel? You should be able to derive it from what I just said.
And international diplomat, yeah, they killed Iranians in Iran. They then bombed Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran. They bombed the Iranian capital. And then they bombed Beirut and killed a senior Iranian general. So actually, it was Israel that's been provoking. And when he talks about source of destabilization in the region, everyone in the region knows it's Israel that's destabilizing the region. It's Israel right now that's escalating wars in multiple countries. Everyone around the world knows it's Israel that's the country that is causing the issues. 40 countries, Piers. 40 countries have just put out a statement on Saturday saying, can Israel please stop attacking UN peacekeepers, blue helmets? So please don't give us lectures on who's stabilizing, destabilizing the region.
So you talking about the UNIFIL troops who, like, refused to leave after Israel I think he's talking about the UNIFIL troops in Lebanon who were like refused to leave like after Israel told them to leave, like because in an active war zone. I haven't done a reading. I mean, maybe there's evidence that they're fucking targeting them or anything. You know, it would be against my priors, but like maybe there's evidence that changes that. But I don't know. Like, I don't think so at least.
As for winning, the Israeli general who ran the Gaza division, Gadi Shamni, says Hamas is winning. Israel is losing in a big way. Those are his words, not my words.
Jonathan, your response?
Yeah, I just out of respect for you, Piers, I didn't interrupt the second time, even though Mehdi's statement was littered with so many lies that are in fact quite ridiculous. Israel was indeed minding its own business. Israel was indeed minding its own business on the 6th of October when Hamas, with a genocidal intent, invaded into Israel and butchered Israeli civilians. Israel was also minding its own business along the Lebanese border when on the 8th of October, Hezbollah started firing at Israeli civilians and military and eventually forced about 70,000 Israelis to flee their homes after many of them were killed. Israel was also minding its own business for many years and has, as you are well aware, Mehdi. No, Mehdi.
Oh my God.
I refrained from interrupting you. Even though you said so many horrible and very flat lies, and I'll continue not interrupting you if you do this.
He said they displaced. When is he saying that they displaced 1 million people in Lebanon after October 8th when Lebanon started bombing like Israel? Like it's just so dumb. Like in all these conversations, like whenever someone tries to bring up like the difference in like the moral standing between these people, like who's acting in self-defense and who's not acting in self-defense, and like who's who's targeting civilians, who isn't targeting civilians. Like it's just so like annoying when like Mehdi Hasan retreats to like a bad statistic about like collateral damage, and it's like, well, actually you displaced 1 million people. It's like, well, like yeah, but like you can displace 1 million people while acting lawfully in self-defense. Like
right. And by the way, speaking about the region, Mehdi, I live in the region. My children are here. You do not. And I don't know how many people you know and see from both sides of these different conflicts. I know people from both sides and I speak with them and I live here. So I don't think that you're in a position to be lecturing anybody about what's really happening in the region.
Lebanon never attacked Israel.
I'm the one who's running with my family to bomb shelters when Hezbollah fires missiles and when the Iranians fire missiles and when Hamas fires missiles. I'm the one who has family who has been evacuated from the north. I'm the one who has close relatives and friends who were massacred on October the 7th. Don't lecture me about who is the source of instability. I agree with you that a lot of countries and a lot of dark people have a problem with the Jews living in their ancestral homeland. But that doesn't make it wrong that we're here. We're going to continue to be here and continue to defend ourselves despite the likes of you and despite our enemies. And I'll tell you that our history is so full of people that wanted to kill Jews and wanted to force us out of our homeland. But we're back, we're here, and we intend to continue to stay here despite the best efforts of Iranians and Syrians and Lebanese and Gazans and others.
Mehdi.
So I do need to respond to that. So first of all, as for lecturing you, as I say, 40 countries put out a statement, including many of your own allies, including Hungary.
Oh my God.
One of the pro-Israeli countries in Europe, saying stop attacking UN peacekeepers. These are not dark anti-Semitic forces. You can't keep playing an anti-Semitism card and undermining the very real struggle against anti-Semitism by using it to defend.
I think he's talking about the UNIFIL troops. He didn't specify. He could be talking about. I think that's the only place UN troops are. But like Israel told these people to leave, right? You won't find any source saying the Prime Minister of Lebanon, Hezbollah attacked Israel.
That is full of some of the most racist people, anti-Arab, anti-Muslim, anti-Christian people on the face of this planet. You are spokesman for a government that contains people like Smotrich and Ben-Gvir, open racists, prosecuted for inciting terrorism. So we're going to talk about lectures. You should keep your lectures to yourself and be embarrassed for the government you serve. As for you living in the region, the problem is not you living in the region. The problem is the army you serve and the country you're a spokesman for illegally occupies other people's land.
Is he still the thing just described him as Israeli YouTuber. Is he still a spokesperson? Is he
in Gaza, in the Golan Heights, now in Lebanon again? You are the country that is illegally occupying other people's lands. It's not about you living in your homes. It's about you taking other people's homes. It's about Israel now aiming to
2020. I don't even think he is anymore.
Annex Gaza,
but,
according to Haaretz this week, that Netanyahu no longer has any interest in saving the hostages, as he never did, and is eyeing annexation of Gaza, to quote the Israeli newspaper Haaretz. And if we're going to talk about people dying on October the 7th, some of us have condemned that. Some of us oppose that. You only oppose attacks on Israel. You support attacks on non-Israelis. On Monday, let's say his name. Shaban, 19 years old. No. You don't get to interrupt me. Sorry, you do not get to interrupt me. You have to get taking the high ground on interruptions. You'll come back in. Piers will bring you back in. I'm going to finish my point uninterrupted. Otherwise, don't be a hypocrite, as well as someone who represents fascists. A 19-year-old young man, Shaban was a software engineering student.
Oh my God, it's such a shit show. Dude. I don't know if anything has suggested that Israel wants to annex Gaza. They obviously want to occupy some part, or at least some people want to occupy some parts of it. There's a difference between annexation and occupation. Clearly, Israel wants a continued occupation of at least the Philadelphia corridor and the Netzarim corridor. But it's different than annexation would be like declaring it your own sovereign territory. Like occupying it could just be occupying it to make sure that you know, to be able to monitor shit there to make sure like Hamas isn't reconstituting itself, right? Like,
can I finish my sentence, Piers, or is it one more?
Jonathan, just wait, Jonathan. I will bring you.
Piers, you can't tell me not to interrupt, otherwise this conversation will.
No, Mehdi, finish your point. I'll bring Jonathan in.
Oh, please don't threaten us, Leslie. We know you want to be here so desperately.
Okay, Mehdi, finish your point.
A 19-year-old. You keep interrupting, Jonathan. People can see what a hypocrite you are. A 19-year-old student, Shaban Ahmed, software engineering student at Al-Azhar University. Jonathan's military destroyed his university, destroyed his house, displaced him, made him homeless 5 times over the past year. On Monday, the world, we all watched him burn to death thanks to Israelis bombing the area outside the hospital. He was on an IV, on a bed, in a tent. He burned to death. His mother died. 2 other, maybe 3 other people died. I'm not sure how Jonathan still comes on these shows and defends that kind of barbarism and open war crimes. I'm not sure how Jonathan sleeps at night watching people burn to death.
Open war, nothing he said there is what's annoying. Is like he'll intuition pump so hard about like something that like very clearly could be bad, but like nothing he said there at all substantiated that was a war crime. That action could be 100% perfectly like lawful. Just because someone burned to death, for like bomb. First of all, it's misleading to say that they you know, are like bombing residential homes or hospitals or whatever, because there's no military infrastructure in Gaza. They operate exclusively out of residential homes, commercial areas, and like in tunnels under hospitals and stuff. Just the fact that somebody burned to death, or like just the fact that they struck a hospital, or just the fact that somebody burned to death, none of this constitutes war crimes. You have to like the intent matters for this stuff. I would guess that like similar to, there was another strike what has happened before. Israel probably didn't anticipate that if they did a strike, it would light you know, so many tents on fire, and all those tents would burn. I would guess they didn't anticipate that. But even if they did, as long as it's proportional, it could still be lawful. You could do a legitimate military strike that lights so many tents on fire and kills so many people because of the fire, and that could still be a legitimate military action. Like no, but like nothing here has demonstrated like any unlawful action by Israel. But like because people don't understand that, like he just intuition pumps like so hard about, he was in a hospital. The hospital burned. Disregard for civilians is a war crime. True. Well, you have to be more specific than that. But like that, nothing he said proves that at all. It's a thing.
Thanks to the military that he served and is now being investigated both at the International Court of Justice and the International Criminal Court.
Jonathan?
Yeah, speaking about serving, and then I'll address the points that you've mentioned. Speaking about serving and standing up for something, I indeed served for 24 years in the IDF, and I'm a proud Israeli Zionist, and I'm a proud Israeli patriot. And I also am very proud of my service, including as a spokesperson, but also including as a combat officer in the IDF. I know what I stand for. I'm asking, what do you stand for? What kind of values do you stand for?
I don't stand for killing civilians like your military.
Oh my God!
You'll get to answer.
Well, Jonathan, did you witness rape?
You'll get to answer, Mehdi.
Did you witness the rape of detainees?
Mehdi, you will get to answer. Mehdi, I'm not done.
Don't ask me questions if you don't want
for a country that is, Mehdi, you spoke, now I speak. I ask, and I will ultimately would like to hear your answer to it, what values you represent? What civilization do you represent? Which country do you represent? Which religion do you represent?
Oh, he's going down. Oh, no, now we're going down the cultural which culture is inferior stuff. We're pulling an Asmongold live on Piers Morgan right now. We're going down this road and not like any of the other dumb shit he said.
What do you defend? I know what I do. I'm part of a democracy in the Middle East, and I stand for a military that defends its population against some of the most vile terrorists in the world, including Hamas, Hezbollah, and Iranian propped-up terrorists. And I am happy and proud to be part of that organization, as I've been over many years. And if you and I were race car drivers, Mehdi, and each of us had a patch sewn onto our little uniforms that indicated who gives us money and who sponsors us, I would have one patch of my country and I would have one patch of my employer. That would be it. How many patches would you have? How big would the Qatari patch be on your clothes? And how big would foreign investment in whatever it is that you're doing and whatever it is that you're representing, how much would that be of what you do? Because you place yourself as if you are above and as if you are entitled to criticize everything that Israel does. And I ask, what are your motives and who pays for what you do?
So it's a very simple answer, as I told Jonathan Levine of the New York Post. And I love this new talking point, Piers. It's got around the right-wing media and the pro-Israel people. I run a company called Zeteo. People can check it out, Zeteo.com. It's a great media organization getting very good press from the Washington Post and others. There are no foreign investors. They're all American investors. I'm an American. You asked the question. I know you can't handle brown people being part of the West. I'm an American. I'm a Brit. I was born in the UK. I'm now an American taxpayer. And I'm very concerned with American taxes going towards the funding of a genocide in Gaza, going towards the killing of a 19-year-old guy who's in an IV in a hospital bed, going towards the killing of children in a school, going towards the killing of 23 people from one family in Lebanon Monday. in northern Lebanon. 23 people bombed by your military. 2 babies killed, Jonathan. That is what you stand for. You serve the IDF, the Israeli military, which, as I say, is being investigated at the ICJ, and the ICC. You serve a military that has been credibly accused by the United Nations just last week by Israeli media, which showed videos of mass rape of Palestinian detainees. The New York Times this week reported that your military sent children, Palestinian children, as human shields into booby-trapped tunnels and buildings. Is that what you did, Jonathan? Can you tell us today? Did you ever send a Palestinian child as a human shield into a tunnel? Because the New York Times is saying your military did that. The World Food Programme is saying your military is starving the people of northern Gaza. Did you starve people when you were in the military, Jonathan? What do you stand for? Starvation? Mass rape?
Let's see if he actually addresses any of it.
Human rights group in the world says your military is an abuser of human rights. I don't know how many human rights you yourself have personally abused. I don't know if you turned a blind eye to rape on your custody. I don't know if you killed children at at point blank range like Israeli snipers did to people carrying white flags. You can tell us today how many people you've killed or how many people you've tortured. I'll be all day.
Listen, Mehdi, sometimes enough is enough, and your level of vitriol
is absolutely ridiculous. We saw a woman with a white flag. Jonathan, we've seen what you're saying people.
Right, you've got questions, Mehdi.
Oh my God.
With white flags.
All right, Mehdi, let him respond.
What you are saying, your list of false allegations and your list of nonsense that you are spewing out.
Everything's
like some of those are true, like the white flag hostage thing. Like that's true that like they did shoot hostages carrying a white flag. Maybe we should wonder like why, like why they thought that was a legitimate military target. Like clearly it was a mistake. Maybe the fact that when they see people carrying white flags, they have to second guess whether they are legitimate hostages or terrorists. Like maybe that should reflect more on like the strategy of the people they're fighting than it does on the IDF. But okay,
unfounded things that the fact that someone.
But I'm pretty sure like the rape thing is true. Like I'm pretty sure most of the allegations are true. But like the issue is the big issue is like. One, is Israel doing this like as a matter of policy? Like, is it a matter of policy for them, or is it individuals like within the IDF taking these actions who should and are prosecuted for it? No, Israel doesn't have a good track record of prosecuting its own human rights abusers, right? Like Israel's shown a good track record for that. It did at least like when the aid worker strike happened with the World Central Kitchen workers. It did at least fire the generals responsible for that strike. But I don't think it prosecuted them or anything. Which actually I don't know if there's a basis to prosecute them. But I don't think Israel's had a good history of prosecuting their own human rights abusers, like I said. But it is an issue. It's an issue of proving it as a matter of policy, and then. What Mehdi will like list off like all these like individual human rights abuses, and he's like, well, if they're doing this, then clearly that shows genocidal intent. When like, no, that's just not true.
Wrote it doesn't make it true. All of these things that
we saw people with white flags gunned down in front of our eyes
by someone,
Piers has seen it, and I've seen it, and everyone watching the show.
All of what you are saying is slanted and biased, and
I read people.
Okay, but he's just repeating that as slanted and biased. Okay, awesome, dude.
Thank you for reading the book. It's called Whenever You're Losing.
Yes, yeah. Well, let other people be the judge of that.
Piers can tell us. Piers can tell us.
But what I can
Piers,
say,
have you watched unarmed people gunned down by the IDF? Piers,
I'll tell you what.
And clarify
Mehdi. I can say categorically, Mehdi, that under the circumstances that Israel finds itself under, I cannot think of any military that would behave in a more humane way. And I say that in 100% sincerity without blinking.
The International Criminal Court Chief Prosecutor disagrees with you.
And I will continue to say it, Mehdi. And I will continue to say it
disagrees with him.
Hamas and Hezbollah and Iranian apologists like yourself. And I will continue to say it and know that I stand on firm ground. Is Israel perfect? Do we never make mistakes? Definitely not. Israel. Well, you just said that Israel was the one that attacked Iran when Iran was minding its own business, which is absolutely
ludicrous. Don't care about your feelings, Jonathan. April 2024,
you are the one who's trying to play on feelings. Mehdi, you are the one who's only trying to play on feelings and on sad stories.
If you don't respond to the facts, dozens of horrible...
Here's the thing, guys. I think this was working very powerfully when you give each other the chance to respond to each other. Okay, you both feel very strongly about it.
Let's do that from now.
You both have passionate views. I understand that. You disagree with each other. I think for the audience at home watching, if you talk over each other, we lose it.
Well, Jonathan can't stop being racist.
Well, Jonathan can't
stop being racist.
Let Jonathan finish his... Jonathan finish, and then Mehdi respond. Jonathan, finish your point.
But I've acknowledged
So I think that what you've said is a laundry list of some of the low-hanging fruit and the concoctions that have been made up against Israel.
Some of it may
have a kernel of truth, and there may have been 10 soldiers who did something, and there may have been other soldiers who did something else that was wrong and that they shouldn't do. Is it common practice? No. Is it something that is sanctioned by the IDF? No.
Okay, now we're kind of addressing it. Should have started this.
The Israeli strike
started with this.
By result of an Israeli strike in Deir al-Balah yesterday. He was killed not because he was a target. He was killed because Hamas ammunition that was stored by Hamas in close proximity to that location exploded. The IDF fired 2 small bombs at that location, and they wouldn't have exploded and caused that kind of fire had it not been for Hamas weapons there.
I remember reading about this. Yeah, like Israel used 2 small munitions, and they didn't anticipate the large fire that occurred, because and what they think happened was that ammunition was stored by the tents or whatever. It was caused a big fire. I don't know if that's true of the more recent strike, though. I haven't looked into it, but.
Care about Palestinian civilians, and as a human being, I was sad to see. I saw his video before. He looked like a very nice and decent human being, and it's sad that he and his family were killed. I saw the movie of burning people. It hurt me as a human being as well, and I wouldn't want to.
I don't know. I remember there being a strike like in Rafah in like February or something where this happened, but I don't know for sure about this one. I haven't looked into it, but
it again, and I wouldn't want that to be reality in Gaza. But the reason that happened isn't because the IDF is fighting there. It's because Hamas is storing weapons there, and they're abusing humanitarian facilities, and they're using schools and mosques and whatever is left of hospitals in order to fight from. And then the IDF targets, well,
they said it was likely due to secondary explosions. Had no knowledge of Hamas center instead of hospital, functions at hospital.
Hamas is fighting from, and unfortunately, people have gotten wounded. I regret that. I know for certain that wasn't the intention of the IDF. It's a very sad and regrettable side effect of that happened, and I'm sure that the IDF will be extra careful in the next time that they attack, but it doesn't make it deliberate. But I think it's hypocritical of you, and I will finish. I think it's hypocritical of you, Mehdi, that you don't speak about the fact that why are they there in the beginning? Why are there ammunition stored in a hospital? Why is Hamas using hospitals to fight?
He probably rejects that there's like anything there. Why? What is happening to my Wi-Fi?
Of October. And by the way, one last point. You mentioned, maybe 10 soldiers did this.
But he just mentions like a bunch of. He mentions like a bunch of.
To blame for the casualties, for the killing of innocent people, for not giving
international media reports or whatever,
and for starving the people of northern Gaza. Right now, Save the Children say that northern Gaza looks like the depths of hell. The World Food Programme says no food has been allowed in by your government and your.
Like this part is just. I showed you videos early on stream of food trucks entering the areas crossing in northern Gaza. Like this part is just like objectively
since the start of October. And by the way, one last point. You mentioned
not true.
Maybe 10 soldiers did this, 10 soldiers did that.
So like I don't know.
None of that is correct. None of that is correct, and I will gladly address.
All correct. The issue is, did you do it?
Of course, you know very well that we don't have time to go into a serious discussion of each and every of those flat allegations that you're rattling off, as if you say them fast, it makes it true, and as if you wave a few names of questionable organizations, it makes it true. No. You don't. No. Mehdi, I didn't interrupt. Let's keep it that way. I really refrain from interrupting. Let's keep it that way. It makes for better discussion. Even though I think you said many things that are horrible, and you rattled off lots of names of organizations that, frankly, most people around the world, many people around the world, have lost their faith in, think are uncredible. You mentioned organizations that have been shown that they are full of BDS supporters and Israel haters that have 2 jobs in BDS organizations and in these so-called humanitarian organizations. But you know what? Let's not go the easy way. Let's say I take you up on each and every one of those points, and I will say very clearly, whenever the IDF finds out wrongdoing, it takes measures against the people who have done wrong. And it's a very challenging thing to do when a country is fighting for its very existence.
I feel like probably the easiest criticism to make against Israel is that they don't have a good track record of actually prosecuting people who do violate human rights law. Like they just don't like the few people that they do arrest get fucking pardons the next day. It's wild.
7 fronts when its soldiers are being forced to fight for more than a year in order to defend their homes and their families, and then to simultaneously have these soldiers called in for disciplinary procedures and to be investigated while we are fighting. That isn't an easy thing to do, but yet the IDF does it. Not because the likes of you or others matter, but because this is who we are as a people who want to be able to look ourselves in the mirror and continue fighting the day after this end. And we will end this war. This war will eventually end.
Jonathan, let me ask you a question. I want to try and just move to a different sort of theme with this. How does all this end? I mean, what is Israel's plan for the end game here? Because to many people, it looks like you're just going to war with everyone now in the region. It could escalate massively. And if you replicate what you've done in Gaza with what you now do in, say, the Lebanon.
I mean, they've been to war with everyone in the region before, right?
Tens of thousands of innocent people killed in the process of going after Hamas. If this is replicated in anything like this scale in Lebanon, you've got vast areas just destroyed. What happens afterwards? And why would you assume that this tactic of going so aggressively after Hamas and Hezbollah in civilian areas is not just going to fuel the ideology that led to them rising up in the way that they did in the first place?
Yeah. Well, going after an enemy aggressively, that's what war is. When you're attacked in your home, when your women are slaughtered, when babies are killed, when women are raped, and when your civilians are burnt alive and people are taken hostage, that's called a declaration of war. And you fight that. You don't fight it by being nice, and you don't fight it by being gentle. You do fight it according to the laws of armed conflict, and you try to adhere to those criteria. By and large, I think that Israel is succeeding. Sure, there have been mistakes, and sure, there are things that weren't 100% right, but I think that by and large, and that's, by the way, many British and American officers have attested to that as well. Those have been able to see the battlefield. But where does this go from here? Sadly, and I live here, and my kids will serve in the military, and I will probably do more reserves, I think that we're in for a long battle. I think that we're in for more fighting. I look around and I listen. I try to listen, and I speak Arabic, and I try to listen to the sounds and people that are willing to say and acknowledge that the Jews have a right to live and exist here. I try to hear those voices amongst Palestinians, Arabs, Syrians, Lebanese, and others in the region. And sadly, I don't hear them enough. And I regret to say this, but I think that what is in store sadly for Israel, and I would want for that to be totally different. I would want for us to focus on economy and research and culture and to do many beautiful things that we do in Israel, and we do them very well, much to the displeasure of our enemies, but nevertheless we do them. And I would want for us to focus on that. But sadly, we're being forced to defend ourselves, and we weren't doing anything that is similar to what's going on now on the 6th of October. And just to end that, I will say that, just one sentence, Piers, the next step is indeed Iran. And I think that we will have a conversation in a few months from now, maybe 4 or 5 months, where you can ask this question again, after Israel will directly engage the Islamic Republic of Iran and start to shift the tide in the region. We won't have Iran funding and amassing these terrorist organizations against us. That will be the beginning of a much quieter and more peaceful Middle East.
Okay, Mehdi, your response.
Yeah, I've got a lot to respond because a lot was said. Let me just deal with the first point. This nonsense about October the 6th. It was all peaceful. Gazans were being killed on October 6th, 5th, 4th, 3rd. West Bankers were being killed on October 6th, 5th, 4th, 3rd. It's a complete lie that there was some kind of peace or quiet in the neighborhood. Maybe in Israel there was, but people...
like relative to what's happening now?
West Bank and Gaza. It's a total and utter lie to suggest otherwise. It's also interesting that Jonathan responded to your question, Piers, by talking about how, and I think I'm quoting him correctly, that when you come into our homes and you kill our civilians and you rape our women and you set us on fire, that is a declaration of war. Which is ironic because he's just described everything that Israel has done in Gaza and the West Bank, both in recent weeks and months and over the years of occupation. So how come it's not a declaration of war for Palestinians when Israel does it to the Palestinians? It's only one-way traffic. Only one side has a right to defend itself, right? Not the other side. Number two, I would just say, he talked again about kind of, oh, there were too many names and I speak too fast. Let me just be clear. I can speak very, very slowly. One issue, rape. He lies and tells your viewers that Israeli soldiers are held to account. That's not true. Anyone can go on Google right now and look at the number of Israeli soldiers, the percentage who are actually indicted or charged with any crimes. It's 98, 99% of Israeli soldiers are never charged with any crimes. And that's from Bet Selem, that's from Israeli human rights groups. I'm sure Jonathan will call them anti-Semites as well. And when we look at one single instance of rape in detention, which was well documented by the Israeli media and by human rights groups and actual Palestinian eyewitnesses, what happened? The Israeli military police peers went to the base to try and arrest the soldiers. The soldiers ganged together, attacked the military police, and then the parliament had a debate about whether rape should be legal or not, whether it's legal to rape Palestinian detainees. And now we're learning this week, Piers, that the military police officers who were assaulted by the soldiers who were the buddies of the rapists, are too scared to give testimony against their soldiers.
Okay, Mehdi, I don't disagree with you. I don't
hold on, Piers.
No, I want to ask you one question.
That is very important that we talk about accountability.
I know, I've got one second.
I will answer your question, but I'm going to finish my...
But on the issue of rape.
I'll come...
Okay, on that one issue of rape, though, what I haven't heard you mention at all is the hideous sexual abuse, including rape, of so many innocent women.
Because we all condemn that.
Oh
my God.
I'm asking you now, you haven't mentioned it. And Jonathan's raised
every time, I mean, like, it's fine to do it over. It's just like, it's so predictable. He's going to swoop in to do the both sides analysis. Thank you, Piers Morgan. Thank you.
Several times. You only seem fixated.
Because
you're fixated with Israeli soldiers who may have committed rape. What about the rape against Israelis?
Piers, if you want to do a debate like that, invite Jonathan Conricus and invite a Hamas spokesperson. I'm sorry, I'm not a spokesman for Hamas. I've condemned Hamas. Unlike Jonathan, I condemn people who engage in human rights abuses. Hold on. Well, I've done it. Well, maybe you should pay attention, Jonathan. Instead of reading my book, check everything I said on the conflict. I was condemning Hamas decades ago, and I've been attacked by certain people for condemning Hamas. Can I finish a point? You gave a long speech. So far, you and Piers have both interrupted me.
You can.
I'm going to answer this point. If you want to have a Hamas spokesman, have a Hamas spokesman. I did an entire show. We keep mentioning Zeteo. I'm loving the plugs, Piers. Appreciate you. On Zeteo, people can go and watch an entire show I did with Bassem Youssef, another one of your guests, where I talked about on that show about how the UN report talked about gender and sexual violence on October the 7th, how that needs to be prosecuted, how it needs to be investigated. You know what the UN said? They said we haven't been able to confirm instances of rape, but we want to, but the Israelis are blocking us from interviewing witnesses and coming into Israel. So maybe Jonathan should get his government to allow UN investigation to finish.
I thought he was just gonna.
Jonathan doesn't.
I thought he was gonna enter into the rape denialism thing, but
no, they're not being prosecuted.
He just uses it as a point to criticize Israel, I guess.
About whether rape should be legalized. That is the military he's part of. He earlier, in a very racist way, suggested I have no civilization, no country, no loyalty except to Qatar and Iran. I'm a British American of Indian descent. I have nothing to do with Iran or Qatar. I would say this: that Jonathan needs to deal with those human rights.
Then he did used to work for Al Jazeera, right? That's probably where that allegation comes from.
Taken seriously. Jonathan Conricus, Piers, wants you and your viewers to disbelieve Amnesty, Human Rights Watch, UNICEF, UNHCR, Refugees International, International Rescue, Christian Aid.
I think you worked for Al Jazeera.
Disbelieve the World Food Programme run by Cindy McCain, the late widow of John McCain. Disbelieve all of them and believe the Israeli military, which he was a spokesman for, which was called lying about beheaded babies, about calendars on the bottom of hospitals, about Lebanese documentaries, the number of the Israeli military lies that they've had to own up to. It's a joke. No one trusts anything Jonathan's saying.
All right, Jonathan, final word to you.
Yeah, actually, many people do trust what I and my peers say, and many people, I think, listen to the kind of thing, the kind of goods that you peddle, Mehdi. And the goods that you peddle are Israel hatred. Sometimes it's more sophisticated and more well-founded. Sometimes it's very easy to dismantle. And it's very clear where you stand. I asked you before, and you conveniently didn't answer. What is it that you stand for? What do you represent? What
Human
are
rights,
the values that
dignity,
you stand
equality,
for? Right.
not rape
if
and war
it's
crimes
human
like you
rights and
stand.
dignity and equality, then I suggest that you stand equally and speak about how they're violated by the oppressive Iranian regime against the Iranian people. Speak about what the Syrian dictator does against his people. Speak about how Hamas...
He only actually had the one good line of argumentation against this
Hezbollah deals with
earlier, where, you know, they ran down the is it a systematic thing or not.
The problem with what you're doing, Mehdi, is that it's very easy to listen to you less. Even though you speak eloquently and you have good sources, it's easy to listen to you less and believe to you less because it's very clear what you're motivated by. You are not something that is motivated by a true care for human beings. You care about human beings if the ones who cause them injustice or something else are Israelis. If it's Palestinians killed by Palestinians, then that's a non-story.
If I had my way, Israelis would be dying right now.
You don't care.
Israelis are dying right now because of your government.
If it's suffering anywhere else, and if it cannot be pinned on Israel, even by your war logic, then you don't care about it. You only care about it if it's related to Israel and if it can serve anti-Israeli propaganda. And that undermines your credibility. You speak about my credibility. I'm very easy and open, and it's very clear. I stand for my country, and I'm happy to defend it. But what you stand for is just attacking Israel. Of course I can criticize, and I even do it on my Twitter. I've said things about that my prime minister said things about my military. Of course I have.
You couldn't even criticize mass rape by your fellow soldiers.
Listen, there hasn't been mass rape. It's such a nonsense talking point.
You should be ashamed.
I don't know. Has there been? I think there's been. He talking about that one, the one Palestinian prisoner who was raped. I know, and then I think there was one. There was that case in Gaza. I don't know if I consider that mass rape. IDF Gaza rape. I'm pretty sure there was that one. Khater video lesbian rape is horrific and insisted that there ought to be zero tolerance for abuse.
Oh, so the UN's lying, the New York Times is lying, CNN is lying.
The UN isn't saying it.
Everyone's
the
lying.
UN isn't saying it. The
Except
fact that you
the
mentioned this organization name.
Actually, the UN commissioned an inquiry last week.
Chaps, we're going to call a timeout.
Everyone can Google it, Jonathan, and see how much you
We've descended into talking over each other. Look, it's been, broadly speaking, it's been a very good debate.
Is there a number how many?
Very different views about this. I learned a lot listening to both of you. I'm glad you came together to debate it. I know you haven't done that before. I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Wild. Diddy has tapes in everywhere. They keep talking about Diddy. They're not talking about Joker 2. Really? You assembled a panel to talk about Joker 2. That's the most pressing issue for Piers Morgan. I know there's this new case of the rape going on in Gaza, and then I know there's allegations of rape in the West Bank prisons prior to October 7th. I don't know how common that was, though. And this is not telling me. If you want to chat with me live, sub here or go to Nonfon420 on Twitch or Kick via the links below. Once again, please like and sub to help with the algorithm, and consider sending a donation through YouTube Super Thanks to directly support me, and I'll make sure to reply to any question you ask. See you guys next time.